Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this webinar today. If you have any questions related to the webinar, please use the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner. Please be specific about the purpose area you're referring to. Ask your question, and at the end of the webinar, all of the questions will be read aloud, and then the presenters will answer them. Also, in the middle at the bottom, there are a few files for download if you wish. There are two files for the presentation. One is a PDF file, one is a PowerPoint presentation file. The other file that is there is the fiscal year 17 solicitation file. Also, if you want to chat about the webinar, feel free to do so in the chat box, but please keep your questions to the Q&A box. Thank you. Also, if you haven't already done so, please chat in who you are, where you're from, and if you have any other members of your party listening in on the webinar. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to the United States Department of Justice training on the Coordinated Travel Assistance Solicitation for fiscal year 2017. Kara McDonough and I are program managers at Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and we will be taking you step by step through important points of the 2017 grant solicitation, CTAS grant solicitation as it pertains specifically to Purpose Area 8, that's Juvenile Healing to Wellness Code, and to Purpose Area 9, that's Travel Youth Program. And they are available online through Grants Management System for federally recognized tribe and tribal consortia. Before I go further, I just want to remind everyone that the CTAS application deadline is Tuesday, February 28, 2017 at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and all applications must be submitted by this deadline. The Department of Justice is committed to a sustained partnership with tribal government to improve justice and public safety in tribal communities, and an effort to build on success of the CTAS. DOJ asked tribe for suggestions on how to further refine and improve CTAS through an online assessment, through consultation sessions, listening sessions, and focus groups. Many of these responses and suggestions are then incorporated into the next CTAS solicitation, which aims to be more user-friendly. So we do rely on your comments and feedbacks through all these different avenues. Although CTAS provides one combined solicitation for all the purpose areas, the Department of Justice program offices that will administer these grants are different. Under Office of Justice Programs, we have Bureau of Justice Assistance, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and Office of Victims of Crime. We also have Community-Oriented Policing Services and Office of Violence Against Women. It is important to remember that although there is one central application process in CTAS, the program and the requirements are administered by separate offices at Department of Justice. And description of the Bureau and the offices that administer these grants and related statutes are attached to a purpose area can be found online at www.justice.gov/tribal. Talking about CTAS funding history, since we began in 2010, we have on average 240 applications per year, and we have awarded 1,654 grants in the amount of $726 million. And on the screen for 2016, you'll see the breakdown. We received 20 applications for Purpose Area 8 and 89 for Tribal Youth Program, Purpose Area 9, and with the total funding requested under each category, as you can see on the PowerPoint. And we awarded 13 grants in Purpose Area 8 and 16 in Purpose Area 9, with the respective funding listed right below them. For fiscal year 2017, under Purpose Area 8, we have estimated 2.1 million funding to be available, and we are hoping to fund 6 applications for up to $350,000 for 4 years. And under Purpose Area 9, we estimate to have 4.2 million funding available, and we are hoping to fund 12 applications for up to $350,000 for 4 years. Over the years, we always try to revise and refine templates that hoping to provide more clarity and reduce any duplication that's there. And so in 2017, we have replaced executive summary with by asking applicants to provide an application overview. In the past, executive summary were scored, but going in 2017, they are no longer scored, but they will still provide a general overview of the application so we can see it in a bigger perspective. Project abstracts are required for each purpose area. In 2017 solicitation, we believe it provides a quick overview of what each grant or application intends to do with the funding that they are requesting. So we have added that in 2017. For Purpose Area 8 funding, that's Juvenile Healing to Wellness grant funds, these are limited to programs or tribes looking to develop a brand new Juvenile Healing to Wellness code. Yeah. Prior grantees, which includes 2014 grantees, 2015, and 2016 Healing to Wellness grantees are not eligible to apply, as this grant will focus on developing a new Healing to Wellness code. So if you have any questions, you can email us about it. For Purpose Area 9, any active grantees, including those with project period that ends on or after June 30th, 2018, are not eligible to apply for Purpose Area 9. Just to review, for Purpose Area 8, we have 2.1 million. We are estimating that would be available, and we are hoping to make 6 awards for $350,000 per award up to, and then for a 4-year time period, grant period. Juvenile Healing to Wellness Code. The overall goal of Purpose Area is to support tribes seeking to develop a new Healing to Wellness code to respond to alcohol and substance use issues in juvenile or young adults under the age of 21. And for application, we really want applicants to incorporate 10 key components that can be found on page 39 and 40 of the solicitation. It provides detailed description of the Healing to Wellness Court model, but also of these 10 key components. And this year we have provided additional guidance in the solicitation, and successful applicants will be working with our training and technical assistance provided to work through these key objectives and deliverable over the course of 4-year award period. So for Purpose Area 8, applicants may apply for funding and request funding for following things: staffing that includes salary and fringe benefits, equipment and supplies, training, travel, strategic planning. And just keep in mind that while there is funding, you can request funding for training, there is already training that are built into strategic planning that will, and your program. Successful applicants will receive an on-site and cluster training from our TTA provider for tribal juvenile healing to wellness courts, and funds cannot be used for additional consultants. Additional requirements for Purpose Area 8 is limitation on participation of violence offenders. If you are not sure what the definition of violent offender is, it's in the solicitation on page 43. In terms of strategic planning period, you will be working, as I mentioned, with our training and technical assistance provider, and you will be required to travel to the strategic planning training and submit a comprehensive plan for implementation of your program, which should include a sustainability plan, and this is for Purpose Area 8. So when we talk about travel that needs to be included, which is part of the strategic planning, you must budget for 1 3-day strategic planning sessions for up to 4 people, and you can use Washington, D.C. as a for per diem and other travel-related budgeting things, and 2 Purpose Area 8 specific training events for 2 people, and 1 Department of Justice CTAS orientation meeting for 2 people. And if you want to know what the per diems are allowable or not allowable, you can go to GSA website. That's on the PowerPoint here. One of the things that are required is the Purpose Area narrative. If you're not sure what how it should look like, what it should include, we do provide a sample of Purpose Area narrative for Purpose Area 8 from last year. One of the successful applicants' narrative, probably redacted, but that will give you an idea of what a successful applicant our program narrative looks like. And you will need to have your GMS password to access this billable document. And there are also available other samples of all Purpose Area templates are available on our website as well. Yeah. Tara will be covering Purpose Area 9, that's Tribal Youth Program, which is also administered through our office.
Good afternoon. This is Kara McDonough, and I work for OJJDP. And I am going to be speaking to you about the Travel Youth Program. This purpose area is administered by OJJDP, and it serves young people who are under the age of 18. That's part of our, it's part of the statute that governs the way that the funds are used. So if you are applying for a TYP program grant, you should know that this is meant to be used for young people who are under 18. That doesn't mean if you have a youth program and a young person turns 18 in your program, it doesn't mean that you can no longer serve them. It just means that as you design this program, you should create it so that it's serving young people who are below that age. So our tribal youth program, we're basically trying to support and enhance efforts by tribes to prevent and reduce juvenile delinquency and strengthen a fair and beneficial juvenile justice system response for American Indian and Alaska Native youth. The funding in this area is rather broad. We are very intentionally have created a purpose area where tribes can use this funding to create, expand, or strengthen different kinds of approaches along the continuum so that they can use it to fill certain gaps or, for their own needs that they determine. We do recommend that you propose a comprehensive project designed to have an impact in one of the categories. So the category really can be prevention, intervention, or treatment, and I'll talk about that in a few slides. But we recommend that you design your program so that you're trying to have an impact in one area as opposed to multiple areas. Although we do understand that tribes sometimes have a number of responses inside of either a prevention or intervention or treatment area. And that's certainly allowable. One of the other things that we really recommend is that you look at your program along with the broader planning efforts of your tribe and also along with your the kind of community support that you have. These are time-limited grants. They're 4-year awards. And one of the really sad things that we sometimes see is programs that it takes a while to get them going, and they finally are, moving along really well, and then the end of the grant period comes, and unfortunately, there's not the kind of effort, there's not the kind of support locally to be able to sustain it. So we really, we recommend that you really, look at your broader planning efforts, particularly if you have a Purpose Area 2 grant that you're working on around the comprehensive tribal justice system planning, or if you've been working on a tribal action plan, and that you design your tribal youth program proposal to be in line with those things. We do have quite a few examples of prevention, intervention, and treatment approaches that are considered priority areas, and they're on pages 44 and 45 of the solicitation. If you've reviewed them, you probably noticed that they really are quite broad. We talk a lot about children exposed to violence. OJJDP has put out after an extensive listening session, there's a Attorney General's Advisory Committee on American Indian and Alaska Native Children Exposed to Violence report. And on page 45, there's a link to that. We recommend if you're going to be proposing anything that has to do with preventing or treating children exposed to violence, that you review that report. We also have a few other links that are related to priority areas for OJJDP. So there's a link for a girls policy if you're going to be proposing any kind of services for Native girls. And we also have some additional information about serving underserved or vulnerable groups such as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and two-spirit youth. There is a listening session report link on page 45 there as well. So a lot like my colleague Tenzing talked about for Purpose Area 8, there is a list of things that you can include in your budget for a Purpose Area 9 proposal. This is not meant to be an exhaustive link. There may certainly be things that are not on here that you know that you need in order to accomplish the program that you're proposing. But some of the categories that that we often see in the budget are staffing needs for your travel youth program, equipment and supplies, travel. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the kinds of travel that we require for you to put in your budget, but you could also put in, additional kinds of travel if that's part of your program. We also, if you have support services that are going to make a difference to your program, such as treatment or information technology or evaluation, expert services that would benefit your program, those are things that you can include in your budget. We do want you to know that just like Purpose Area 8, we do have a training and technical assistance provider that is specifically funded to work with our Purpose Area 9 grantees. So that training and technical assistance provider, will be available to work with you on your strategic planning and also for program-related things. But again, the difference between this and the support services is if you're, let's say you're asking for funding for a particular kind of treatment for young people, and you would need some consultation with a psychologist on an ongoing basis, that's not something that our training and technical assistance providers will be able to cover. So that's the kind of thing that you could include under support services. So this is, my colleague also covered this for Purpose Area 8, but basically there are 3 different events that we ask you to budget funding for. Sometimes this is more funding than you're actually going to need during your project period, but because we don't know exactly where these events are going to be held, we ask that you use Washington, D.C. as the location. Generally, Washington, D.C. is one of the more expensive locations, so that way we can sort of be sure that you have enough in your budget to cover whichever of these locations that we end up having these meetings. So it's one 3-day strategic planning session for 4 people. And then it's 2, this should say Purpose Area 9, specific training event for 2 people. And then there's 1 CTAS orientation meeting for 2 people. So to apply for Purpose Area 9, those of you who have already applied for CTAS in a different year know that basically there's a template and it asks you questions and you fill them out. So based on feedback that we've gotten from tribes in prior years, we hope that this is a benefit to you because it helps you make sure that all the different questions that are asked, and we know that there really are a lot of questions that are asked, are all accounted for. So if you click on this first link, you will go right into GMS. You'll need your password, and then you actually fill out the template, and that constitutes your narrative for this purpose area. If you want to just take a look at the template and you're not ready to actually fill it out, if you want to work with a committee on what the questions are and split them up and talk them through, the second link there you can go to, and you can actually get the template without having to log into GMS. So this is just generally, this was covered in an overview, but we thought that it was important to share it again. You definitely want to register with GMS early. You have to be registered in the system. If you wait on that and then you're down to the deadline and try to put your application in, you won't be able to do that. So if this is the first time that you're applying with us, make sure that as a first step you register with GMS before February 7th. And then there is a quite a lengthy set of instructions to submit the application. And the GMS Help Desk is available Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. The Help Desk is there because sometimes GMS is not necessarily intuitive. So if it's your first time using it, I would highly recommend that you get in there and kind of take a look at exactly how it works and get comfortable. with calling the help desk if you have any problems. They can walk you through it. They'll actually be able to look at the exact screen that you're looking at. So please don't hesitate to call them if you're at all confused by the way that things are set up. The other couple things that you'll need to do in advance, these are things that sometimes people have gotten stuck on at the last minute. One is acquiring a DUNS number, and the other is acquiring or renewing your registration with the SAM database. These are both things that have to be done before your application will actually be able to be submitted in GMS. So these are things we just want to flag for you as needing to happen in advance. So another few things, just so that you know, only one application per tribe or tribal consortium will be accepted. And if multiple applications are submitted, the last one that's in the system, on February 28th, is the one that will be considered. So you can get in there and you can fill out the templates and you can work in GMS all the way up until the application deadline, which again is Tuesday, February 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. But once the deadline hits, the very last one that has been submitted is the one that will go through peer review. And if there's any of you that are going to have a problem submitting an electronic application in GMS, there's a phone number here to call, and you can call it no later than Friday, January 26th, and accommodations will be made for you to submit a paper application. So just a review, again, the solicitation opened November 29th, and it closes on Tuesday, February 28th at 9 p.m. If you have no internet access, you will need to contact the Response Center by January 26th. And then the Department of Justice expects to award grants no later than September 30th of 2017. So we always put this in here just because every year we do see, unfortunately, some tribes that submit an application at the very last minute on the last day. Maybe it was because they're, working on getting the pieces together and really making it perfect, and then unfortunately run into some kind of problem, some kind of glitch, some kind of, connectivity problem. And there have definitely been times when, unfortunately, their whole application and all that work was not able to be considered. So we try to just say that, it's important that you get your application in there. If you can do it at all in advance, you can save yourself the stress. But please don't wait until the last day or the last minute to submit it. So we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some additional training and technical assistance and some education around CTAS. We are aware that it's a very dense application with all the different purpose areas and all the different requirements. So we try to, we have a number of different webinars. This is the last purpose area specific webinar that we'll be doing. We do have one additional last webinar, which is to talk through the checklist and to leave time for people to ask any kind of questions. And that is going to be happening on February the 9th. There are fact sheets and frequently asked questions at the website that is on your screen, www.justice.gov/tribal. From there, on the left side of your screen, you can click on webinars and you can click on training and technical assistance. You'll find prior year solicitations. You'll find a packet of sample successful applications that you can review. There's one for each purpose area. You'll need to scroll down on some of the pages. Sometimes what you're looking for is just further down the page, so just remember to scroll down. There are also, when you click webinars, there are recordings of previous webinars that happened. So we will have a recording of our overview, of the budget overview, and then of the purpose area specific webinars up on that website. Also, if you're not familiar, there is an online guide that tribes can use, and it can be found at this link. And it basically it was created to help tribes prepare for, write, and submit their applications for complex grants such as CTAS. But it certainly could be used for other complex grants as well. These are some other resources. You can always write to this DOJ Response Center for a question on any purpose area. This email right here, tribalgrants@usdoj.gov, and the 1-800-421-6770, that goes to a response center that basically takes a look at your question and determines, who would be the right subject matter expert to give that question to. So you could write about the general application, you can write about any purpose area, and they'll make sure that it gets to the correct person. We also are going to give our email addresses here. If you have a purpose area 8 or 9 question specifically, you can send it to either Tenzing or myself. And we also recommend that you sign up for email updates. And so if anything's posted on this website, if there's a new resource, you'll get an email update. So this is what the online guide looks like. You just click on Explore the Tool down here where that red arrow is, and it'll take you in to a tool that guides you through a series of steps. And basically the steps help you sort of plan strategically. So by reading the solicitation really thoroughly and designing your proposal, organizing all the different people to be involved, assessing the needs of your community, partnering with various different kinds of organizations and departments to make sure that your program is, as strong as it can be, and then attending to details. So this online guide basically helps you to look at each of these areas in a kind of methodical way. So that's the end of our presentation. We just, again, want to remind you of the deadline. We wanted to leave the rest of the time open for any kind of questions that you have. If we don't have the specific answer, we will take your name and your email and get back to you. But we're happy to answer any kind of questions that you have. And if you can please type them into the Q&A box, then we'll read them out and get you the answers that you need.
Thanks, Kara. The first question is coming in from Eleanor. She's asking, will you accept letters of commitment in place of MOAs?
We will. You can submit a letter of commitment. You can submit a memorandum of agreement. You can submit, a letter of a partnership. So, wherever your program is at the time, that's one of the other attachments that you can submit.
Okay, thank you. We had a couple questions come in regarding prior webinars. The prior webinars will be available online. However, if you would like them sooner, you can email at the usdoj.gov email address, and we will get those out to you. There was a couple of people asking about purpose areas 6 and 7 and when they're going to be available for download.
You can, if you would like to, we hope to have them up on the website within this week. But if you'd like to leave your email address in the chat box, we can send it out to you right after this webinar is over.
Lorraine Gordon asks, are there any resources for evaluating peer support-based programs, specifically resources that offer best practices for evaluation?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not aware of any resources off the top of my head. If best practices for evaluation of peer support-based programs. I may be able to send you some articles, and we certainly can, we have some partners that we work with specifically that do peer support-based programs for tribal youth, and I can ask them if they have any resources for evaluation. But off the top of my head, I'm not aware of any.
Lorraine responded, that would be great. Just looking for some guidelines for planning the most effective evaluation plan.
Okay, great.
Are there any other questions? Please remember to type them in the question and answer box, please.
And while we are waiting for questions, I just really want to emphasize, before you submit your application, please review the application checklist and make sure you have all the elements and all the required documentation, because if you're missing any key documentation, or if you forgot to attach your budget, but you have everything else, then it would not pass the basic minimum requirement because you didn't attach budget. You might have really good narrative and things, and your application would not be reviewed. So please make sure you go through application checklist and you are providing all the required documentation along with your application.
That's a great point, Tenzing. And I would say, just as a matter of a good practice, if you can have your complete packet together and then have someone who hasn't been, looking at it, give you some fresh eyes and, have them look at the checklist. A lot of times I think, people work with these applications for so long that after a while, it's hard to really see them and to see them objectively. So that's one of the great things about if it's possible to have it ready before the deadline, then you can take that extra step. And as you could see from earlier in the presentation when we talked about particularly Purpose Area 9, you could see how competitive it is, which is really a shame. And we all really wish that that wasn't the case, that we had more funding, because we get many, many more excellent applications than we can fund. And so sometimes it really does come down to some very specific kinds of things. And so if you can give yourself that extra time to really polish it at the end, I think it'll really help.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to remind everybody also that this presentation, Purpose Area 8 and Purpose Area 9, the presentation is at the bottom in the presentation for download. There's also the fiscal year 17 solicitation announcement. That's also there for download. Just click on it and upload the file to your desktop or however you save it. But those are available for you today. All right, we have a question from Lorraine. Do you have any suggestions for the best way to cite or establish that our program is utilizing evidence-based practices, is focusing on tribal community support of the proposed plan more of a priority?
So this is Tenzing. So in terms of Purpose Area 8, when we talk about evidence-based practices, I think aligning your application, like your with 10 key components that's the best practices out there when it comes to healing to wellness court, like aligning your application and what you plan to do with the 10 key components would be, it's the best evidence-based model that's out there. So I think for purpose area 8, just make sure that you incorporate 10 key components into your application.
And for purpose area 9, we do have, I don't know how many people are familiar with OJJDP's model program guide. That's basically our department's, evidence-based program registry. And so, it's a good tool. It takes you through a number of different programs and the kind of evidence that's available to suggest that they are effective. And it can be a good education piece. As many of you know, lots of those programs, unfortunately, have not been necessarily used in tribal communities. So, we are not able to say with certainty that they're actually evidence-based for tribal communities. There are, a few that have been used with tribes, but we are not, necessarily encouraging that you, must use those programs because, again, there really aren't that many of them, and they may or may not be applicable in your situation. So I would say, if you are using an evidence-based practice that may be documented in another way, maybe it's on another registry, or maybe there's some other evidence that that is the reason why you all are choosing it, that it would be important to include that in your application. And again, including information about the tribal and community support of the proposed plan is definitely a really important thing to do in your application as well. I wouldn't put one above the other, but I would say if you can include information about both of those aspects in your application, that would serve you well.
Okay, Josh Simmons asked, the forms available at grants.ojp.usdoj.gov do not require GMS login and are fillable. Are these the same documents as in GMS?
They are the same documents.
Great, thank you.
And while the questions come in, I just also, one other thing I wanted to add, we are always looking for peer reviewers, and it gives you really good experience on how this the grant selection process works and what other applications look like and things like that. So we encourage people, especially tribal members, to apply to be peer reviewers or send us your resume, and then we can add you to the database.
We have a process where basically whoever the peer reviewers are going to be, go through a process that looks for conflicts of interest. So, obviously you wouldn't be able to serve as a peer reviewer on a panel where, your tribe was applying for a grant, or you were involved in the proposal for a grant. But we have, lots of purpose areas, and so, yeah, if you want to be involved in that, that would be great.
Thank you. Oh, I wanted to remind everybody today, everybody that was on the webinar that registered, you will be receiving an email from Tribal Youth Training Program Center. And on that email, you will have a direct link to review this webinar again. You will also have a PDF PowerPoint file attachment of the PowerPoint that was presented today. And also there is a link to a survey. Please take the time and fill out the survey. It's not very long. It'll take you maybe 5 minutes at best. Fill out the survey. Let us know how we did on the webinar today. That way we can make any needed improvements for next year's webinars.
Okay, I guess we'll give people about another minute or so if you have any last questions.
I have one more question that came through real quick. Application overview is listed below Tribal Community and Justice Profile. Is this a different application overview?
Let's see. I'm not sure if I understand the question. Application overview is listed below Tribal Justice and Community Profile. Yeah, those are two different things. So the Tribal Community and Justice Profile is one section, and then the application overview is actually new this year, and it kind of takes the place of a yeah, it used to be a kind of a summary, and now it's just an application overview. So that's new for this year. Josh, if I haven't answered your question, if you could clarify a little bit more. Okay, let's see. It looks like you did.
Yeah, under G, it is listed as 6, and then also listed under 13, other attachments.
Oh, yeah, I think under other attachments, they're just they're basically just, giving you a list of possible attachments. But yeah, it should be the same. If they're both called application overview, it's the same thing. There's not two of them.
Okay. Okay, thanks. We did have one question come in through the chat. Sylvia Murray, she asked to confirm, you did say can include in the budget psychological or therapist costs if we are focusing on intervention.
Yeah, and this is for Purpose Area 9. You can include support costs for your program. So let's say that that it's essentially kind of a personnel cost for your program, but you're not going to need like a full-time person, and so you would just hire them on a kind of an as-needed or per diem basis. That's what I was saying about support costs. So yes, if it relates back to the purpose area, the goal of the purpose area, that certainly is allowable. And again, I think for both Purpose Area 8 and Purpose Area 9, we went through a list of costs that are most commonly seen in the budget, but it doesn't mean that it's an exhaustive list. If you are putting your program together and you see that there are things that are needed for your program to work, you probably want to review the financial guide. You can find it rather easily at, you can Google OJP financial guide, or we can put a link to the financial guide here. And you can look under unallowable costs. So there's some things that are not allowable in general. But as long as it doesn't fall within those things, you can add that into your budget. So I just want you to I want to make sure that you know that the things that we listed are not the only things that are allowable.
Okay, I believe that's it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And please remember to fill out that survey. If there are certain information that you need from us, additional information, please email. The email addresses are down there in the presenter contact information. And also to the financial guide, it is in the chat box right now if you need access to that. Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great day.